Hello, everyone. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for being here again. Like Amelia said, my name is Raijene Walker, and I am the lead for enrichment programs and services here at the Well. And I am really excited to be here with you tonight, not just to host, but to present. So let's get started. Now, habit number 3, put first things first. Now, before we move on, I just want to do a quick review because as you guys remember, or if you weren't here on Tuesday, Mr. Kirk did a phenomenal job really breaking this down. So habit number 2 was begin with the end in mind. And then there were 3 buckets. So we needed to have a clear mission. Remember, we talked about mission statements. We need to have clear goals, knowing what we want to do, because that's like the end, right? Begin with the end in mind. And then there's roles. So the role that you play in your own life and within your own success, and the roles that other people play. So your family, your friends, essentially just your environment. Well, habit number 3 is an extension of that role. And so I will be referring back to that quite often. So habit number 3 is more like a time management habit. So where habit number 2 is talking about goals and mission, habit number 3 is talking about the scheduling you need to achieve those goals and those missions. Habit number 2 is about setting priorities, while habit number 3 is about the discipline it takes, the discipline to take action. And habit number 2 is about mental and philosophical creation, while habit number 3 is about the physical creation. So I want to know, let me know in the chat, what is your relationship with time management? So while I give you guys some time to write something, I'll explain these 3 pictures. So here we have someone just juggling it all, 6 hands. Wow, I wish I had 6 hands most days here at the Well, but like they're on the phone, they're holding a book, they're holding the briefcase, they're holding the time, and that picture just shows balance, right? So are you really good at balancing within your time management? Are you someone who can kind of let time get by? So I know I am very guilty of this, especially on the weekends. 1 minute I'm looking up and it's 1 p.m. The next minute I've watched a whole bunch of anime and then it's nighttime and it's time to go to sleep and get rested. Or are you someone who writes everything down? That's also an interesting thing, and that's something that I do, especially professionally. But let me know in the chat about your relationship with time management. You like it, you don't like it, and then I'll refer to it a little later here. So here we have 2 pictures, and before we get started, we want to talk about what Sean Covey calls packing more into life. So on this left side, we have someone who just put all of their things, all of their belongings for their vacation into the suitcase, trying to shove it in there. And I don't know, I'm definitely guilty of that most times. And then we have someone who has folded everything up all nice and neat. So the interesting thing about packing more into life is this. Let's refer back to this first picture. Have you ever done this and then said, okay, let me start over? You start over, you take everything out, and then you start to fold everything carefully, only to find out that, wow, everything actually does fit inside of the suitcase. But not only that, there's more space. So you have space to fit more things. This is what Sean Covey is talking about when he talks about packing more into life for habit number 3. So a great quote directly from the book is, the better you organize yourself, the more you'll be able to pack in more time for family and friends, more time for school, more time for yourself, more time for your first things. And so that's what we're going to be talking about here, how to become better, how to better organize our thoughts, our minds, our actions, so that we can put those habit number 2 goals into action, because practicality really is reality, right? So in order to fully understand time management, we're going to use Sean Covey's models. This is the time quadrant model. And there's 2 main recipes of this. We have something that's important or urgent, and then there's not important and not urgent. So important, these are your first things. So these are your most important things and activities that contribute to your mission and your goals. And then there's urgent. And these are things that have to be done as soon as possible. They demand immediate attention. In general, we spend time in 4 different time quadrants. Like we spend time in all of these, but to help us better understand it, he's going to refer to them as people. But don't be sad if you feel like you fall into these, that's okay. Everybody spends time in all of these quadrants. So let's start here with quadrant 1. So quadrant 1 is the procrastinator, which is urgent and important. And so this is the procrastinator, the name for it is a little misleading because a lot of stuff in quadrant 1, we don't have control over. You see, friend gets injured, car breaks down, these things are not in your control. But exam tomorrow, you're late for work, or a project due today. Some of these things are in your control if you don't procrastinate and wait to do them. And if you stay in this quadrant here, he says that the result of staying there is stress and anxiety and burnout, also mediocre performance. So we don't want to spend a lot of time in this quadrant. So let's go down to quadrant 3. So this is the yes man, or to make it more gender inclusive, we'll just say the people pleaser, right? And maybe a lot of you can identify, maybe not, but this is urgent and not important. And so right here, for example, we have unimportant phone calls. So stopping what you're doing to answer phone calls, interruptions, other people's small problems, making their problems your problems, or just peer pressure in general. And people that stay in this people pleaser quadrant, the result of staying here too long is going to have you feeling like a follower rather than a leader. There's a lack of discipline, and you may just feel like a doormat. So you don't want to spend a lot of time here either. So let's go to quadrant 4. Now this is called the slacker. And this quadrant is for like waste and excess. So too much TV, endless phone calls, excessive computer games, mall marathons, time wasters, blah, 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 all of that. So with here, you don't want to necessarily avoid quadrant 4. You just don't want to spend all of your time here. You want to be more balanced. And if you spend all of your time in quadrant 4, Sean Covey says that the result of this is lack of responsibility, guilt, flakiness, and missing out on adventure. So yeah, we don't want to spend too much time here. Boo to quadrant 4. But quadrant 2, I saved the best for last because this particular quadrant is where we should stay, where we should want to be most of the time. And this is called the prioritizer. So things that are not urgent, but they are important, which is important for first things first. And so this is planning and goal setting, essay due in a week. So you're starting your essay now because it's due in a week. Exercise, relationships, relaxation. You want to make sure that you spend as much time as you can here. Like I said, in general, we spend time in all 4 of these, but you want to have a more balanced life. And the balance is the prioritizer, which is quadrant number 2. So if you're feeling brave, tell me in the chat where you spend the most of your time. I know for me, I'm definitely number 3, the people pleaser, and number 1, the procrastinator, because I'm definitely going to get things done, but I don't kind of mind stopping what I'm doing to help other people. It's definitely something that I've gotten from my mother. Okay, so Deja says she's 1 and 4. I totally get that. Okay, we have a number 1, yeah, the procrastinator. I feel like a lot of us spend a lot of time here because we still get the work done, right? It's just we waited till last minute. So, okay, like I said, you want to make sure that you're spending a lot of your time in the second quadrant, and that's the prioritizer, right? So The prioritizer lifestyle, here are some things you can do to stay in this quadrant. First, get a planner. Now, if you're like, Raijene, man, a lot of adults tell us this, our teachers tell us this, I don't want to do it. Look, you can use your phone. You don't have to use a good old paper planner. I do. You don't have to. You can use your phone and use your PC. Like, what a shock that our phones are not just for streaming Netflix all day or going on social media. Like, it's not just for that. It can also help you organize your life and get yourself together. And there are a ton of apps that you want to use. Remember that on Tuesday, Mr. Kirk said that time is the most important thing that you own. And so if you want to be a better planner and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to use a computer, I don't want to use the paper, go ahead and use your phone, get an app that'll help you. There's really a lot of resources out there. You want to make sure that you plan weekly, maybe at the end or the beginning of the week, identify the things that are most important that you want to get done, and then start filling it away, plucking it away. And also you want to adapt daily. So there are going to be some times where you don't get things done. And if any of you are perfectionists, as I am, the well staff can tell you, it is definitely a burden sometimes on me. But you want to adapt. You want to make sure that you are adaptable. Sometimes you're not going to get everything done on your planner. Boo. And so it's the saddest thing. It's so sad for me. But what you want to do is say, okay, that's all right. At the end of today, I'm gonna make a different plan for tomorrow or for the next couple of days so that I actually get it done. So those are some examples. All right, and that was just the first half. So the other half of habit number 3, but first things first, is overcoming fear and peer pressure. This is something that I feel like doesn't really get talked about a lot, but a lot of this can deal with mental health. A lot of this can deal with just being overscheduled, which teens really are. Teens can be overscheduled. And so how do we overcome this fear and peer pressure so that we can handle our goals and our missions? You know, those are the things that we talked about with habit number 2 with Mr. Kirk. So how do we overcome fear and peer pressure so that we can achieve those goals and truly feel successful and be successful? Well, Sean Covey says that there is a courage zone and a comfort zone. So the comfort zone represents things you are familiar with. It is risk-free and easy. But the courage zone, it represents adventure, challenge, discomfort, and uncertainty. It's also a place of opportunity and the only place where you will reach your full potential. So let's take a look at this. Look how the comfort zone is just right here in the middle. We have things I enjoy doing, safety and security, relaxation, ease, surety, freedom from risk, things I'm accustomed to. You know, the thing is, you want to spend a lot of time here, right? You don't want to just live an uncomfortable life. But in the courage zone, this is where you are going to truly feel challenged and change, which is really exciting. I don't know if that excites you guys, but that excites me. So in the courage zone, we have things I'm afraid of, things I've never done, things you've never tried, hard moments. If some people like to avoid conflict, this is for you. Hard moments, reaching your ultimate potential, unexplored territory, risk, things that are difficult, opportunity, bravery, higher duty, and adventure. So the courage zone is where we want to make sure that we don't neglect. We don't want to neglect a chance to change and a chance to reach our full potential, which will essentially help us to complete our goals. So let's take a real world example of this. So this is going to be my journey through, I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey through the courage zone. So in my sophomore year of college, I made the unique decision to take a year off, which is normally called a gap year, or I don't know, an on year, or working year, whatever people call it. But for me, my goal for that year, starting at the end of that spring semester was for 365 days, I want to make a difference. I didn't have any experience, even though I was a sophomore in college. I never really worked a real job. I wasn't involved on any clubs in campus, so I didn't have a lot of experience. But I took the courage zone. I came out of my comfort and I blasted my resume everywhere. So it was like this tiny, and I just said, well, we'll see where that takes me. Well, before the summer got started, I was invited to be a part of a summer at this particular camp where they work with indigenous children, indigenous youth who are in the foster care system. And it was an amazing summer. And one thing that I forgot to mention is that it was in Colorado, which was like, whoa. I didn't mention that I am from the Northeast, Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised. I was going to school in Boston. I had never been on a plane before, and there were just too many things to be afraid of. And I was feeling all of it, but I had a goal in mind. I wanted to make a difference. And for some reason, this particular camp thought, this little resume is perfect. We want her. And so I was able to be a part of that camp. Now, being a part of that camp and being a part of students' lives, I realized that I was very much interested in youth development, but I was still in college. And remember, this is just the summer. So I have a whole year where I want to make a difference and do things and all of that. Well, thanks to my experience at this particular place, being in the courage zone, it actually created a sort of domino effect. So after or during my time in Colorado, I got the call that my resume reached City Year AmeriCorps, which is AmeriCorps is a program for teens and young adults to do service on the national stage, basically. And I was invited to do a 10-month stint with them, where I also was working with youth, which was just really fun. I worked at a school and I was able to teach, to tutor, to mentor, and it was an amazing time. So there I am right there. I was able to meet some of the best people in the world. I was able to be challenged, and I learned a lot about myself as a person. And yeah, it was a really, really good time. All while keeping this at the forefront. I wanted to make a difference. So I was soaring at this point through the courage zone, doing things I had never done, teaching a class, being a teacher's assistant, mentoring. These are things that I had really never done before that summer. And then that takes me to how I essentially got here to North Carolina. Another opportunity presented itself because of my initial courage zone, because of initially soaring through the courage zone. And I was invited to do another year at AmeriCorps for Public Allies, where I was able to be a part of a nonprofit organization and to basically help them build capacity there. And it was an amazing time, which brings me here, full circle to where I am right now at the Well, enrichment lead. And honestly, I would have never gotten here had I not taken the initial step. So all it took was just a little bit of courage, maybe a little bit of luck, because people don't talk about that enough. And once I got on that courage train, I wasn't willing to get off. So what about the failures? I know you're thinking, wow, Raijene, that sounds great, but remember, in the courage zone, there may be some failures. So what about the failures? And my question to you is, what about them? If I sat here and told you guys all of the times that I failed on my courage journey, courage zone journey, we would be here probably for days talking about all of the little mistakes that I made on the way and all the things that I didn't get to accomplish while I was soaring through my courage zone journey. But it doesn't matter, because the things that actually happened and transpired, those were the most important. The successes that I had, they overshadowed any and every single failure. And trust me, there were a lot of them. So where are we now? How do I end this presentation? Well, one, you should know that according to Sean Covey, that habit number 3 is the toughest habit. So you are not alone. You are not alone. You are in great company, okay? Because this is a lifelong challenge. And Bessie said a great thing. She said, failures or learning opportunities. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, whatever you guys would like to call them. I think learning opportunities is a good positive spin because I learned a lot. I learned a lot through them. But with habit number 3, you're not alone. It's a lifelong challenge. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. I took you through just a little snippet of my journey, and trust me, it's totally worth it. So the courage zone equals full potential, and we want to reach our full potential. And last but not least, because I am unashamed, resources. So there are people out here who would love to help you. If even adults are saying that time management and overcoming fear and peer pressure is difficult for them, I mean, how much more is it difficult for you? Of course, we know it is. And so here at the Well, we have a ton of resources. We have a whole bunch of programming. Betsy plugged it in the beginning. Go ahead and check us out, www.wade.org. We're doing hybrid programming this year. And if you need help with life expectations and planning, post-secondary planning, if you need help with professional development, personal development, we are here for you. All you have to do is go to the website, sign up to be a member, and we're going to be all over it, okay? So with that being said, does anybody have any questions? That is the end of my presentation. And Bessie says, remember, potential doesn't mean it's all present at once, but it may yet be yet to be discovered, yet to be fulfilled. Yes, I definitely agree to that. Where have you had to be courageous and what did you learn? Oh, wow. Now it's time to just pick through a time. I think I've had to be courageous just as a person, a woman of color, going through life trying to achieve everything. And that question was for everybody. So go ahead and answer, but I'll answer first. Yeah, always making sure that I'm on it, that I'm presenting myself well. That takes courage to just show up, to be honest, to show up in spaces where you know you're not wanted or where you may feel like you're not wanted, but doing it anyway because you know that you have a goal in mind. So beginning with the end in mind and then putting first things first. So a good question that Betsy is asking, have you moved, started a new school, taking a class you weren't sure of, learned a new skill? Let us know in the chat. Anytime you had to be courageous. Killing a bug every single time. Oh, Jamie says, I went on a roller coaster with a 200-foot drop and I'm afraid of heights. Yes, Jamie. Now that was the courage zone because I ain't doing that. Bessie says, was it fun or was it a dare? And when you guys consider or think about starting school in person, Yeah, so starting school. So first time trying out for soccer. When you guys consider about the next school year, do you have anything that you think you'll have to go through as far as like the courage zone or anything you want to talk about? You can take yourself off mute if you would like. You can put it in the chat.
That was actually a question that I had for you, Raijene. Describe a moment in your life where a hardship became a stepping stone.
Oh, good question. Oh, well, I would say, I don't know if it was a hardship. I guess in high school, I struggled a lot. I struggled a lot academically because I struggle with anxiety. And so I never put myself out there. Definitely didn't have the 7 habits to go off of. And so by the time I made it to my 12th grade year, I had found out that I wouldn't be graduating if I didn't get my stuff together, essentially. And so that year, I took a minute once my supervisor sat down and spoke with me. I took a minute and I just told her like, hey, I know I want to graduate, so please just help me. So I took a second to at least ask for help. And then it was a really tough year. And I had to do a lot of classes on top of other classes, but definitely finished. And of course, finishing high school was just the greatest reward for me. Like in my community and where I come from, not a lot of people get to do that. So thank you so much for that question. Yes, and now I am going back to school to finish up at ECU. So because of some of the decisions that I made in high school, college was really rocky. I didn't have a lot of these resources. And so it was a lot of off again, on again. But now I am on, soaring through, and yes, attending ECU with the major in communications. And of course, working here at the Well, serving students like you every single day. So I'd say that's a stepping stone, I'd say.
You're rocking it here, I can tell you that.
Thank you. Okay, well, if you guys don't have any more questions, I guess we can go ahead and end for tonight. Thank you so much for coming out for habit number 3.